good day to you wherever you happen to be. Thanks for coming our way and spending a little bit of time with Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani, and I think, Debbie, we have the whole show team in place. Rich is back on the controls, Jeff Burson on social media, and it should be Ryan Penny screening the many, many calls that are going to come in just like yesterday.
Oh, yes. This is part 2 of the robocalls and the scams that are associated with it. We're getting some helpful tips on how to navigate those, avoid those, make sure we check them all out. And these automated calls are a nuisance. Let's face it. They are a problem. They are scamming our, primarily targeting people, and our senior population is getting targeted as well. And so we wanted to do this show because we think it would be helpful. Plus, we just feel it's plain, it's downright wrong to be doing to people. And that's not a Christian way to treat one another, to trick them or to scare them or put them into some kind of anxious state. That is not of God. So we wanted to have this part 2 of the conversation. If you were on the line yesterday and we couldn't get to you, please call back. Tell Ryan. He'll put you at the front of the line. All you have to do is dial 833-288-3986.
And we got a number of emails from yesterday that we will get to start the broadcast out here today. You can also comment if you're watching the broadcast, the live streaming video on Facebook or YouTube. You can email take2@ewtn.com. Comment on the show website, take2show.com. You can text the letters EWTN to 55000. In other words, you can't hide, okay? We know you're listening by one of those means. You can get a hold of us by so many different ways. I think it's great.
Yeah, we're waving to you on Facebook and YouTube. You guys are doing such great chats there. Thank you so very much. Jerry, I wanted to read this email that came in from some of our wonderful Take Two family that came in, and it really, it just helps us along and encourages us to keep doing topics like this because they're helping other souls. And that's what we want for Take Two. We want to continue to enrich your spiritual life and your daily lives as well. Okay, so this came in, I guess it was early this morning. Was it early this morning? Yeah, I guess it was. It says, "Thank you, Debbie and Jerry." Put me first. Thank you so much. I'm just teasing. Thank you, Debbie and Jerry, and the callers. I was in the car for your program. When I arrived home, I had a call that was recorded. A subscription was ending in 2 days, and they would take $399 from checking or from a card unless I called the number. Thank you. With your show fresh in my memory, I was more alert. I called the Better Business Bureau, gave them the phone number, which they said was not a good number. And God bless, they said, and keep up the good work. See, this topic, this conversation was fresh in our memories and in our minds. So we were alert. And when we are alert, Satan has a much more difficult time attacking. Wouldn't you agree with that, Jerry? See, I agree with that. It's when we go kind of somewhat comatose a little or kind of on autopilot, that Satan just wreaks havoc and tricks us using people.
Yeah, well, my mind goes right to a scripture passage. I think it's in one of Peter's letters. He says, "Stay sober and alert. Your opponent, the devil, is prowling like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him solid in your faith." So we really have to be alert to just everything that's going on around us. Not paranoid or anything like that, but just vigilant. I think there's a healthy kind of vigilance, Debbie, especially with these things that are happening. I think yesterday I had 2, maybe 3 robocalls, scammers or whatever, after we had done the show, over the course of the rest of the day. And so it happens to me regularly. If those who are listening right now weren't with us yesterday, I mentioned I counted over a 3-day span about 75 scam robocalls. I didn't answer them because my screen says potential spam, and I usually let a number go to voicemail if I don't recognize it. But 75 in 3 days, Debbie, imagine that.
Unbelievable. Well, we want to hear from you. So if you've been affected by this, maybe even embarrassed by this because you fell for it somewhat, we all have. I mean, at some point, there's something inside of us says, okay, this could be real. Maybe I should give my attention to it. And then we have to pull back and do our research on this and say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem correct. Here's the number, 833-288-3986. Please call in. And Jerry, I just want to say, when I was was reading this email. Just think about this for a moment. It was so beautiful how this email was written by these fine folks. And they said, I was more alert. Okay. And then they were able to call the Better Business Bureau, checking it out, and found out it was a scam. Now let's say, okay, you're in the middle of Lent, things are happening. All things, happen during Lent. Okay. And you're feeling tired, stressed, something's happening. This recorded message comes in and you're thinking, ugh, this is horrible. Now they're going to deduct $399. This is a mess. You see how it can get you off the mark, get you off focus. And that's why I'm glad you cited scripture, Jerry, because I think it's important that we remember that, especially during Lent and Advent, 2 seasons where I believe that Satan just tries to mess with us terribly.
Well, yeah, and here's the number again, 833-288-3986 as Ryan is screening the first calls that are coming in. And we didn't have a call yesterday from someone who maybe, Debbie, is on the other end of this. Maybe they work for a company where you have to do maybe outbound calling, or you are the one responsible for putting together the robocalls or something. Maybe it's a very legitimate business. We mentioned quite honestly on the show that there are a lot of good uses for robocalls. Debbie and I know a number of Catholic radio stations that will use them. They'll get a radio show host to record something for them and say, hi, I'm Jerry Usher calling on behalf of such and such a station, letting you know our pledge drive is going on. But if anybody listening, if you've been tasked with putting those calls together for your job, maybe in a very legitimate way, we'd love to hear from you, because there really are many different angles, Debbie, we can take on this topic.
Oh, I totally agree. And I share too that, my husband's in sales, in real estate sales. And, this ruins it for other folks that are really trying to provide a service to others. And because people will avoid even going near the phone, or they won't answer, or, they think that something's going to trick them into saying who they are, identifying themselves, and then they'll have access to their information. It's really a problem across the board. So let's talk about it, folks. Let's really have those helpful tips and help others. That's the name of the game here at Take Two. We want to help others. Call in 833-288-3986. This is part 2 of the robocalls. Are they a scam?
EWTN, communicating the faith.
What makes me happy is listening to Catholic radio. I'm by myself a lot. Had a concussion as a child and I can't see very well, but I do work. I go to church and I'm an on-fire convert. And as a child, more or less, I've learned to have a good sense of humor whenever I can. And I'm very appreciative of everything I have, and especially Catholic radio.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Well, we're on the road again with the coach, Danny Abramowitz. The road to spiritual fitness this time, a 5-step plan for men. Just finished a wonderful interview with him on the book. Coach, tell us what this book's about and why it's important for men.
I think basically because men are sort of asking themselves, am I really happy the way my life is going right now? And I think our hearts will never rest until it rests with thee, St. Augustine said. And I think this is, Doug, is a guide based on scriptures and the catechism, not my personal opinion of things. I had to walk through this myself over 30-some years, and that's why I put it in this format. It's not a book to read and throw over in the corner. It's not like a journal or whatever. You have to take your time, and it will change your life.
The Road to Spiritual Fitness, a 5-step plan for men, available through Religious Catalog, and look for the entire interview coming soon. And this has been a Bookmark Brief. We appreciate you stopping by. We'll see you next time.
Great to have you along on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hard to believe we are halfway through the first full week of Lent. Ash Wednesday was a week ago. Hope your Lent is going very, very well. You're drawing close to the Lord and He to you. And I want to mention also a few hours ahead of our show, weekday mornings, is the Sunrise Morning Show with Anna Mitchell and Matt Swaim and their wonderful guests and topics and segments. They really help you start your day right. 6 a.m. Eastern Time, the Sunrise Morning Show on many of these same EWTN affiliates.
Okay, this just came in from one of our listeners. Said this is a true story. It happened to them. A guy called their house collecting money on behalf. Oh, it just see. You see how this works? Satan, I'm telling you. Collecting money on behalf of police officers. This person said, I have almost a dozen police officers in my family, and I know they never solicit over the phone. So I told the man that I was a family member of many police officers, and it wasn't right what he was doing. He began to yell at me and even curse at me and told me that his friends were going to come to my house and gang rape me. This is a true story that came in from one of our listeners, and I can verify this listener because this listener is a very loyal listener who's actually been journeying with us for many years on Take Two. So, can you believe to instill that kind of fear in a woman, and now she's in her home and thinking that she could be attacked in her. This is horrible.
It's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, this is terrible.
Okay,
wow.
Phone number for you to join the conversation, 833-288-3986. We'll lead off with Gail. She is in Grand Forks, North Dakota, listening on our friends at Real Presence Radio. Hi, Gail. Welcome to Take Two on our show on the Robocalls.
Hi. Thank you so much. I have something I feel like I need to share with you. I've had this happen twice now. Someone gets a hold of the phone number of your pastor, your priest. And they text you a message and they say, hi, Gail, I'm in a meeting right now, but I really need your help. And then they have the name of the priest and it says, would you text me back? So the first time I did. And they said, well, I really need to get some gift cards. I'm over at the cancer center and I want to give some gift cards for these people. Would you go and pick them up? And I'll pay you back. And then it says, God bless you, Father so-and-so. And then they went on. I didn't respond. Then they go on to say, well, when you get the gift cards, just read me, peel off the code on the back, just read me the code, and I'll take care of it from there. And these calls, there's a lot of people in our church who have gotten these calls. And they definitely seem as though they're coming from your priest. It's horrible. They're preying on us.
Yeah, Gail, we had the exact same call yesterday from somebody else in a different part of the country. Yeah, same exact scam. And I shared that I had a similar thing happen with my husband texted me and it sounded so real and it wasn't. And thank goodness he had called right after because I was like, why are you texting me this? It was so bizarre. So they're able to hack into the account and pose and pretend like they are that person that you trust, that you would immediately respond and help, right, Gail? And it's very dangerous. And I think it's immoral, and I think it has to be criminal. Go ahead, Gail.
Oh,
what's that, Gail?
And the last one I got, I have to just tell you, it's so hard for me not to respond to these people and say shame on you, but I know I shouldn't respond. But the last one I got was from a priest who was deceased. So they just have a list,
Right.
This is so ridiculous. It's so bad. But I'm so sorry I missed the show yesterday. I love your show.
Thank you, Gail. Yeah, there was a call almost.
And I just wanted to put this out there. Yeah.
It was almost verbatim. It was the same thing. It was the parish priest. It was gift cards. And they were trying to figure out, talk them into a way that they could get their card information and so forth. It's clear that the people who do these scams, they do a lot of legwork, a lot of homework on you, the victim, and who they say they're going to pose as. So that makes it a real problem. And especially it's ratcheted up a few levels, as Debbie, I think, was saying, when it's your parish priest. Which one of us wouldn't drop everything we're doing and go to help our parish priest, even if it meant some financial outlay on our part? So this is another great lesson, Gail, that you've given us to how did your situation end? I hope that you didn't end up having to do this.
Oh, no, I didn't respond. I just didn't respond, and I chalked it up to another horrible person who would do something like that, Anyhow, well, thank you so much. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Gail.
sharing this.
Thank you, Gail.
Okay.
Well, we're trying to raise awareness. I mean, they are targeting specifically the senior population, and that's just terrible because they may not have the access to the internet to do their research or their investigative work to find out what it all means, and so that's a problem, folks. And people are going to get scammed more and more if we don't talk about it. So that's why we're doing it, and I'm glad we are. Part 2.
Yeah. And I will get a lot of text scams, and I know they're scams because I know what activities I'm involved in, what ministry projects and so forth. But I'll get a text that'll say, "Hey, you still want to get together and work on that video project?" Or you're still in the market for I found some really great listings, some home listings. Hey, I know you've been looking, and I've been looking real hard for you. And let's get together and I'll share what I found with you. So, those are obvious, at least a little bit easier to determine as scams, but they come in all shapes and sizes.
Oh, yeah. I shared about our listener that sent in this message saying what happened to her with this phone scam about these raising money for the police officers. And then this person threatened to find out where they live and to hurt them in their home. Text messages are coming in saying, you see, this is where somebody has to intervene and stop it because this is really dangerous. And when you think about this on all levels, Jerry, this is so dangerous because you talk about the domino effect of what could happen with all of this. And then people, taking things into their own hands, and it's not good. So remember yesterday we had that call from that fine lady whose son works for ICE, and his work is to do this, to break up these scam rings. And so I just want to say we need more of that, and God bless those who are working on it.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Richard in Pleasant Hill, California, listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on Sirius XM 130. Hello, Richard. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Sure.
I've gone through all of the same things that people are talking about with all the scams and everything. But what really infuriates me is that I get these calls that, the fact, as I'm listening to you, there was a scam call that came in. But at any rate, I live in a 925 area code area, and a lot of times there's no name, but there's a 925 number. And so sometimes I will pick it up. Invariably, it's somebody wanting to sell me something. So I ask them, well, from where are you calling? And they tell me Minnesota or Texas or whatever, or Southern California. Point is that they're calling from outside my area code. And so what they're doing is they're bouncing their calls. They're calling in and camouflaging their numbers to a working number. So I have no way of contacting them. And it just infuriates me when they do that because I won't do business with anyone that hides their number like that.
Yeah, it's wise, Richard. You're wise. You're on to them. Debbie, you shared something about this yesterday. You maybe want to share with those who weren't listening yesterday. But I get the same thing too all the time. The area code in which I live shows up on probably, I would say, half to 2/3 of the robocalls that I get. They're very sophisticated.
Very. Richard, I watched this show, and this is what prompted us doing this topic. I was watching the show last week, and they had talked all about it, of how these scam rings are staying one step ahead of us. So as we pick up on what's happening, right, and it's being circulated through social media and internet, so everybody's aware of it, they take it up the next level and the next level. And one of those levels is getting local area codes so that you will pick up. Okay, so so when you stop picking up on your local area code, now they're going to do the next thing and the next thing. It's really unbelievable, and that's why these conversations have to continually. You can't just feel like you've got it covered because they're going to try something else. And with technology, there's so many things that can be done. So this was part of the show that we had watched, and I'll tell you, it's very disturbing. So and it happened to you, and I'm sorry for that.
I would like to share one thing with you. I heard about an app that you can purchase. It's like $1 a month or something like that. It will answer for you with a robot and keep the person on the line and carry on conversations. It's that sophisticated. So that if they're doing that with robot to robot, it's preventing them from calling someone else. I don't have it, but I've heard that there are these apps that will do that.
We had a few people send some different programs and software programs and apps and stuff that you can subscribe to and download to help you with this. But we haven't checked any of it out. But obviously it's out there. So I would encourage people to do their research and see what's best for them, what could work for them if it is something. But again, Richard, they're gonna find a way to get around it. I mean, look at the one with hijacking the priest's his contact list and sending it out via text. I mean, that's quite brilliant. It's horribly, I think criminal, but it's brilliant in how they're thinking to do it, because they're thinking, okay, this is their priest. They're getting a text message, piece of cake. They're going to answer. They're going to respond. It's terrible how they're staying one step ahead. But yeah, Richard, there are, we got a lot of messages yesterday, Jerry, about that.
Yeah.
Different programs and apps.
Yeah, Sue watches on Facebook. Thank you, Richard, for the phone call. We appreciate it. Sue is a Facebook video watcher. She says, get Truecaller. We haven't checked this out, so not recommending it necessarily, but I looked online, and they've got a 4.5 rating out of 12 million users. So apparently, I don't know if it's free or paid or whatever. This isn't an endorsement. But Sue says that it blocks the robocalls for the most part. They do not call lists. The do not call list no longer works. My landline had a feature where if you are a first-time caller in my number, you have to press 1 to be connected. So all the robocalls come as missed calls, so it's easy to filter through. So that's one recommendation from Sue, who was listening yesterday.
When you think about that, look at all the effort you have to go through. It's just horrible. We can't just make life a little bit, easier. Okay, let's hear what Doug has to say in Michigan, listening on Ave Maria. First time caller. Hi, Doug. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call. I just have a quick comment. Maybe somebody else brought this up today or yesterday. I haven't been listening both days, the whole hours. But one thing that I struggle with the robocalls is you see them on the ID, whether at home we have a landline still, and then we have cell phones, of course, but is you see the number come up and it's out of state or it's a strange area code. Well, I have 2 kids that are teenage drivers. One's away to college, 90 miles from home. And the other one drives 40 minutes to high school every morning. So I see a call come up and I go, well, is it my kid on the side of US 23 driving home and someone's doing him a favor, calling me, trying to get his phone's dead. So, hey, can you come get your son? I just struggle with not wanting to pick those up, but yet I'm like, is this someone calling? And then my daughter goes to school with a bunch of students from all over the country, so they have cell phones probably with area codes from who knows where, right? So that's where I struggle with, is trying to decide whether or not I should pick that up or not, and I don't want to encourage them to call me, and I feel like it kind of puts you in a pickle a little bit. So that was my comment.
Well, you stole the word I was going to use, Doug. You get yourself in a pickle in that situation. But I think what I'm hearing from you, and I would certainly, if I'm correct, I would certainly wholeheartedly agree. Be on the safe side, obviously, in a situation like that, because maybe it could be something serious going on with one of your kids. And I mean, when we think about it, generally, if we're on our toes, then the worst thing that's going to happen when we pick up a robocall is we're going to hear the robotic voice and we can hang up, or we just find out that it's a scammer or something right away and hang up on them. Typically, if we're alert, like you were talking about earlier, Debbie, then that would be, I would think, the worst thing that could happen. Of course, the worst thing that could happen if it was one of Doug's or somebody else's children really in trouble, then there's a real problem.
Well, see, this is what bothers me, Doug, because I'm a parent and a grandparent. I'll tell you, it just, your children, you want to be there for your children. So, of course, it's tugging you. You say, oh, how am I supposed to answer that? If God forbid something happens to my child, what am I supposed to say to the police? Oh, I didn't answer because I thought it was a robocall. I mean, it's really a horrible, you talk about a pickle, that's a horrible pickle to be in, because as a parent, it's terrible. And that's what I said earlier. These scams are brilliant in the creativity of them, but diabolical. It's evil. It's wrong. It's because it's leading people into areas that it's so tragic, and what it could do for their own personal daily lives and their spiritual life. It's really horrible, Doug. My heart goes out to you as a parent. It's tough. I would say you got to get more creative. Try to stay ahead of them. Maybe create a system with your kids or something that's outside of all of this, Doug. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, there might be some, like you said, Debbie, some creative ways that you can, know that it's one of your kids in a situation like that. But thank you, Doug. That was an absolutely brilliant insight that you shared with us and added so much to this conversation today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Raymond Arroyo.
We need EWTN radio for the reason that Mother Angelica founded this enterprise. She saw this as a holistic approach, reaching the whole person, bringing them truth and life.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN radio.
I used to wonder if God really cared, why it mattered what church I went to, or why I even bothered with faith at all. Then I started praying more often and going to church. What happened? My relationships got stronger, and I felt a peace that I never had before. I realized that God in my life was the difference between occasionally being happy and finding lasting joy. If you're looking for something more, check out CatholicsComeHome.com.
The Reason for Our Hope with Father Larry Richards.
Once someone's died, you remember explicitly what that person said to you. Now, so we go back and we start off with King David. Now, King David is a good man to begin with, because King David, the word David means beloved of God. God says of David, he is a man after my own heart. But you all know David, right? He was a murderer. And yet God said he was a man after his own heart, because David kept getting up and trying, repenting. We have the beautiful Psalms. God have mercy on me, coming from David, So he knew what it was to be a man. And so here's King David, and he takes his son Solomon. The last words of wisdom he gives him. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 2. He says, I am going the way of all mankind. So, take courage and be a man.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic faith. We clear them up on Call to Communion, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
This is part 2 of our show on the automated calls that can be associated with scams, and we are having this conversation because it's an important one, and it's dangerous to folks that are most vulnerable, and that's not right. So we take on these topics to help others so they can become aware and stay alert, stay vigilant, like Jerry said, as the Bible tells us to be. And we want to hear from you. So please share with us your experience at 833-288-3986.
Okay, back to your phone calls here. We got all the lines are taken right now, but we'll move through them as quickly as we can and hopefully get you on the program as well. 833-288-3986. Becky will be next in Columbia City, Indiana, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Becky. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Anytime.
I just wanted to share. I'm getting very frustrated with the phone call. The screen on my TV tells me who's on the phone, whether or not I'm going to pick it up. And here lately, we see these personal phone calls with our, people that it's their phone numbers. And the other night, I was so frustrated. If my grandkids cannot get a hold of mom and dad, I'm the next online. So it came up on my screen thing, Wooley County Consolidated Schools. And I picked it up, and this lady starts telling me what she's selling, and I go, wait a minute. This is not Whitley County Consolidated Schools. And I said, number one, who gave you permission to call? Number two, I just went off. I was so upset. I go, how can you people sleep with yourself at night? And my husband was sitting there laughing at me. I was just so frustrated because it could have been a phone call that they could not get a hold of my son or daughter-in-law. So they were calling me that something happened to one of my grandchildren. So just like what Doug was saying, you pick up these things, and these people are so cruel that I don't know how they sleep at night doing these things to people, because my heart sank when I saw their school number come up, because I thought something happened.
Well, Becky, our hearts break for you on that as well, but you're not alone. I've noticed it in the past couple months. In fact, I'll jog Jerry's memory here. I have that interactive thing on my television screen too, that the caller ID comes up. And the other night, 3 times Jerry Usher's number came up on the screen, and I thought, oh my goodness, something's wrong. I better call Jerry. Something's happened. Something's wrong. And I called him and I said, okay, what's up? And he goes, what are you calling me for? And I said, well, you were on my screen. And you almost sound silly, right? You sound silly because it's like, well, you almost want to take a picture of it saying, I'm telling you the truth. It really popped up on my screen. I couldn't agree more. It's very troubling. Becky, go ahead.
Well, I called our mayor, and this was probably, I don't know how long this has been going on, and I called him, and he laughed at me, and he said, oh, I know, Becky. He said, do you know how many times my phone numbers come up? And it did once. Our phone number came up, and I picked it up, and the person, it was delayed, and I was shocked that it wasn't a recording, but the person came on, and she goes, hi, how are you today? I go, who gave you permission to use my home phone? And then obviously they hung up on me right away. But I don't know how people can go to bed at night knowing that they're screwing people like this, because number one, they have to go home. They have to be getting the same frustrating phone calls on their home phone or their cell phones. So how can they live with themselves? And being a Christian, you're not supposed to be rude to these people. And it is so hard not to defend yourself. And, and it must go in one ear and right out the other. They must not care at all about it.
Yeah, well, Becky,
I just don't know how they can do it.
I don't know how either. Debbie doesn't know how, and probably everyone listening doesn't know how either. I made the comment yesterday. I really believe this is something, I think it was on the show yesterday, that this is something that people who pull off these scams or try to pull these off are going to have to answer to God for, because, the Bible is very clear. Jesus talks about, the little ones, the vulnerable ones, the weak ones. And so many of these scams are targeted at, seniors and people who don't maybe quite understand how all this technology works. So, in a way, I make it a prayer opportunity. I do get my blood going a little bit, but then I often will stop and say, Lord Jesus, please, show this person what they're doing, because it really is not in their eternal best interest, not judging their destiny, but just saying, judgment will be, this will be a part of someone's judgment, I believe.
Well, you just stirred something up in my soul. Let me ask you this question. I'm just going to throw it out there to Becky and to Jerry. What if when we do get a live person, not a automated call, when we do get a live person, why don't we say something very nice, saying something like, you're better than this. Please think about what you're doing. You are better than this. Because, the people need to make money, right? And they're going to do all sorts of things to make money. Maybe we need to elevate people and get them out of that and start thinking higher of themselves, because clearly this is not, in my opinion, my humble opinion, this is not a respectable job when you are instilling fear in others. And I mean, look at that email, text we got from that fine lady who said that they were threatening to rape her in her home. Are you kidding me? That's horrible. What do you think, Becky? Maybe we could rephrase things.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I should be, especially with Lent. I'm trying to get in a more prayerful, more prayerful opportunity, and that would be that, is to, just reach out to them, because I'm just wondering, do they need the money so badly that they don't think about how they're hurting others? I know my husband laughed at me the other night. He goes, "You're getting your blood boiling for nothing back. They don't care." Mm-hmm. And I go, "I know, but it's just," I was just, the first thing I thought of was, something happened to one of my grandkids. And I don't like having that fear of, and just like listening to what Doug's fear is.
Right. I have to just say something real quickly, because you said something, Becky. Back in the 80s, I managed a phone center. Okay. And I did it for 18 months. And I will tell you that the people in the phone center, they go into autopilot. Okay. They go script. It's almost like they go into a robotic form. They just read the script. If they get a hang up or something happens, they go to the next number. I will tell you, every once in a while, somebody would come to the front of the room and they'd say, "You know what? I don't feel good about this script. I can't do it. It's against my conscience. I don't feel good about it. I need to quit." So you know what? There is that. I just had this memory of this. This is a possibility where we could tell people, you know what? There's better jobs out there, more jobs that'll help others, not hurt people. And so maybe this is a call to action here. Who knows?
Yeah, thank you, Becky, for your call. We appreciate that so much. And we did make the point to Debbie yesterday, and I think today early in the show, that there are companies who still do legitimate, they're not even robocalls, actually. It's just it's telemarketing is what you would call it. And I think what we're talking about is a little bit distinct from that. Wouldn't you say so? I mean, the legitimate companies that... Yeah.
Absolutely. People that are providing services, insurance services, real estate, house
solar
cleaning,
energy,
solar, all sorts of services and needs that help us along. Absolutely. Those are legitimate telemarketing opportunities. And people have worked very hard to make it very, easy on the person that's answering the call and also the person that's starting the call. Okay. But this is different. But I think, Jerry, it kind of bleeds into legitimate telemarketing, if you will, and it's distorted it somehow, because that even now when you get a call you do recognize the business, right? You're still on guard, you're still on edge, because it's now ruined some of these legitimate, I think, opportunities.
Right. Well, we have a lot more thoughts about this on the lines right now. 833-288-3986. You've just tuned in to Jerry and Debbie. If you just joined us, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Part 2 of our conversation yesterday about automated calls or robocalls and the scams that are often associated with them. So next up is Suzanne in Abilene, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for waiting. Hello, Suzanne. Are you there? Okay, maybe we'll check back with Suzanne in just a moment. Oh, wait, hold on. I think she was there. Is she there? Suzanne? Okay. We will put her on hold, and Ryan can check back in with her as we go to Annie. And Annie is in Kansas City, Missouri, listening on Catholic Radio Network. Hi, Annie. You're up next.
Hi, how are you?
Real well. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. I had some solutions I thought I'd share with folks just in case they are being overwhelmed by robocalls. I was listening to the gentleman talking about how it's frustrating being able to get in contact with his kids. Like, he theorized a scenario where his kids are stuck on the side of the road and he doesn't answer because he can't identify the phone number. And some of the things, and this has been forever for me, even when I was younger and my parents had to get in contact with them, is that just let your kids know that you always will not answer an unidentified call, but they have to leave a voicemail. I always check my voicemail immediately after somebody calls me. And, it comes in almost instantaneously. So there might be like a couple minutes of lapse, but then you can verify that it's someone that's actually legitimate. So that's one thing. And then also, if I do feel like I need to answer a call I can't identify, I pick up the phone, but I don't say anything. So I wait for the other line to say something to me. so that I can verify it's a human being. Like sometimes your dentist's office calls to verify you have an appointment, and they'll go, hello, and then you'll know, and you can say hi. But if it's a robot, it'll just stay dead, and you can hang up on them. And then what I do later when I have a minute, because usually I'm driving, to be honest, when I answer my phone, because we have a car that does that. But I will wait till I'm somewhere where I can check my incoming calls, and I'll add that contact to a contact called spam risk. So the next time that call comes into my phone, it comes up saying spam risk. So I know not to answer it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You and I do something very, very similar, Annie, in that I really consider it screening my calls through voicemail. Right. I will definitely do that. Debbie, is that something you do? Do you, if you don't recognize the number, do you just wait, let it go to voicemail?
I'd let it go
so many
to
of
voicemail.
mine just never leave a message, so I know that definitely wasn't a legitimate call.
The only thing I will say is I do the same thing Annie does, that I stay silent. But it's awkward, Annie, because Jerry and I in the ministry work we do, we're supposed to be very friendly, and and so it's odd because I've had listeners who have my number will go Debbie, and they found it a little odd. But I do that as well because somebody told me to do that, and it works because then you find out if it's a live person on the other end. It's a mess. It really is. Let's face it. We're in a mess and we're trying to navigate our way through it. But I do like the advice you gave for parents, to tell the kids to leave to have a message left. And the other thing too is a lot of families are setting up, their own personal codes between their parents and the kids, so that there's a code given right away that says, it's for real and it's my child. But I don't know if that could be broken into too. It's a mess. What do you think, Annie?
Well, and my kids also have a code word. It's broccoli. So if someone answers the phone, we say broccoli. That's our code word.
You need to change that though now, Annie.
Yeah, I know, we will. Well, I don't know that anyone will have my number but you guys. So
yeah.
But the other thing too is I know it's awkward, but as soon as someone says something to you, you can always explain to them, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize your number. And immediately, like I said, put them in your contact list. That contact list, these phones have gigabytes and gigabytes worth of space in them nowadays. So add that person to your contact list so that, like I was telling your call screener, I deal with a lot of contractors, so a lot of times I'm not going to recognize a number. But if I call them immediately after I get off the phone with them, I put their number in my contact list. So the next time they call me, I know exactly who that is, that it's such and such construction company or the dentist or anyone who I expect to make a call to me should be identified by my phone.
That's brilliant.
If it's an unidentified number, then I know it's probably someone I've never been in contact with previously in my life. So, like you said, you do ministry. Well, make sure those people are going into your contact list so that when they call you, you recognize them and you can answer them. Oh, hello, Rose or whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, I think this is so common for so many people that I have let calls go to voicemail, and you call a person back and just explain to them, and people are very understanding about that because they're probably experiencing the same thing, getting calls they don't identify either. So, Annie, great contribution. I love the code word that you and your kids use. It could have been something like, ice cream or cheesecake or something, but you chose the one you did.
Right.
So.
I like broccoli.
God bless you, Annie. Thanks for the call. I love broccoli
Annie.
too, actually, yeah.
I love broccoli. I love cauliflower. I love carrots. Any vegetable is really good. Brussels sprouts, Jerry. We both love Brussels sprouts.
Well, that we do. And we both love Catholic News Agency. How's that for a segue into our little promo here for Catholic News Agency from EWTN? It was Super Tuesday yesterday. There are many more primaries coming up. There's elections on the way. There's all kinds of news going on in the world, in the church, in our country. How do you sort through it all and make sure, you remain sane as you're getting true news? Well, one way you can do that is by going to CatholicNewsAgency.com on the internet, CatholicNewsAgency.com, a service of EWTN.
Okay, up next is Janine. Janine's in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, listening on Sirius XM 130. I used to vacation in Myrtle Beach all the time when I was a kid, Janine. I love your area of the country. You're in a little slice of heaven.
Yes, we are. We recently retired, and we love it here. It's awesome. We're
Beautiful.
very blessed.
Mm-hmm. You are. So what is your thoughts on this? Good discussion, huh?
Yeah, excellent. I didn't get a robocall, but I got a series of, my carrier is Verizon, and I got a series of text messages from Verizon. I kind of routinely get text messages from them about bills and things like that. And so I wasn't that suspicious. And after a couple of them, I won't go into all the details, but at the end, I did get suspicious. I called them. They said, no, we're not sending you text messages. So then the last one I got, I happened to be with my college-age son, and the message was, we're going to port out your phone number. And there was a number to call. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, ignore it. So I ignored it. And wouldn't you know, they actually ported out my phone number to another phone carrier. And the way I discovered it was in the worst possible way. I came home and I went to deposit a little check for my husband's birthday from my parents. And when I went to deposit the check to our main checking account, the double verification code that they sent to my phone didn't come to my phone. I'm like, well, where's the verification code? And then I realized I had no cell service. So luckily we have my husband has a business phone. So I called Verizon, and sure enough, someone had actually somehow hacked into my Verizon account, got my PIN number, impersonated me, ported my phone number out to like T-Mobile, to an untraceable pay-as-you-go phone. I had to call the police, get a police report, send it to them. They had to send it over to T-Mobile, and they had to go through this whole big rigmarole to get my phone number back. But meanwhile, everything that I do online and through my phone sends that two-factor authentication to my cell phone. So I couldn't log into my Gmail because then they could get into that. I couldn't log into my phone, my bank account, because that authentication went to the phone. And they said, don't log out of anything, because if they're in there, then you might not ever be able to get back in, because then they'll have your access to your account and they'll change your password. So it was for 24 hours. I have to say Verizon worked really hard. 24 hours for me with a lot of stress, because everything is on my phone, all my passwords, everything. They didn't steal my phone. They stole my phone number. So everything, like if you call like Kohl's or something, they'll say, oh, hi, Janine, because they recognize your phone number. So it was really hair-raising for a few days. And then after that, when I finally did get my phone number back, I had to be very careful, change all my phone numbers. We have to monitor. We're still kind of monitoring our bank accounts and all that stuff, because everything goes through your phone. So it was and the texts looked like they were from Verizon.
Wow, I think you get the, I hate to call it an award, Janine, for the most, twisted story in all of this, but you really have went through an amazing experience with this. I have never had I've never even heard of that actually happening, because of just the fact that, I would wonder why somebody would want to steal somebody's phone number, but you just kind of enlightened us there by saying that so many of our goods and services that we get are keyed to our phone number. I know many of the things are for me. So, Debbie, I think this happened. Did this happen to you or to Marty?
I was just saying a lot of people have all of their information on their phones. I mean, their phones have become, essential to them, because they travel for work and everything. So everything's on their phone. So, Janine, did Verizon share with you how this could have been prevented at the very beginning? I know, your son told you to ignore it because it's definitely a scam, but then it turned out they were able to do something on that. So did Verizon share any tips on how to stop this from happening?
Well, not really. I have to say, and it's probably true of all the carriers, not just Verizon, but Verizon is a big carrier. But I got transferred from one department to another. I ended up with the fraud department, and the people there were very, very helpful and informative. And one person actually told me they deal with like 90 cases of this a day. The people that do this are so clever, and so that's all they do is try to find ways around the safeguards that these companies put in, and they're so clever that the companies can't even keep up with it. As soon as they lock up one part of their system, the scammers find a way around it, and they just have a whole team of people spending all their time trying to deal with these kind of problems.
Stay ahead of it.
But they had a ton of cases just like me waiting to get their phone numbers back.
Oh, that's horrible. That's what we said. Diabolically clever. It's horrible, and it's immoral, and it's sinful, and it's wrong. Janine, we hope everything gets fixed in your situation. Our prayers are with you. Sorry you had to go through that. That is just, my blood pressure is sky high listening to your story. My heart breaks for you.
Thank you so much. It was really stressful.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that with us, Janine. We appreciate that so much. Dan in Abilene, Texas said that there is a scam where robocallers will call in and they'll ask you, can you hear me? And if you say the word yes, they will take that yes and splice it onto another answer that you likely might have, or the question that they would call you, like, would you like us to discontinue the service? Yes. Would you like us to do this? Yes. So, and then we got an email, or a Facebook post about that as well, or an email. I think it was an email or a Facebook post about that. So maybe be careful about that as well.
Oh, yeah. That's one that's circulating through social media, telling you to watch out for. Okay, we have time to get to Mary?
Sure.
Mary in Georgia.
Couple minutes, yeah.
Sirius XM 130, first-time caller. Mary, sorry we're going to cut you short because you're going to hear the music soon, but we wanted to get you on air. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
I can hear you.
Hi. I'll make it quick. I just wanted to tell you about the first time this happened to me when they started spoofing phone numbers, and I don't know how they get the phone numbers from inside your contact list, but I was widowed at 47 4.5 years ago, and I believe it was the day of my funeral, my husband's funeral. My husband's phone number called me, and I was in a fog anyway, but it just threw me for a loop, and I was so lost and confused that day. I don't remember much about the day, but I do remember that, and it's just, it's traumatizing, and it's sad that that's what I remember from the day of my husband's funeral. And I hope they're listening, and I hope it just makes one person quit their job.
So there was actually somebody on the line and engaged you in a conversation, Mary?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
And I don't even remember what it was about. It was a telemarketer of some sort, and I don't even remember what I said to them. I'm sure I wasn't nice. But it was just awful. I just don't know how they do this. I really don't know even how they get phone numbers in your contact list. That's scary.
Yeah, well, as bad as this was for them to do in the first place, it's exponentially made worse by the circumstances, Mary. Nobody should have to experience something like that. And our prayers go out to you back at that time. We're so sorry about the loss of your husband as well. And if you are willing to, we keep a prayer book of first names of living and deceased. And if you'd like to give us your husband's first name, if you're comfortable, we can put you and him both in our prayer book.
Absolutely. His name was Chris.
Okay.
We
so
have
sorry
him in the
about
book.
that.
Yeah, so sorry. That is just horrible. Yeah, Mary, we're so sorry you had to go through that. The loss of your husband and then this. And you know what? Maybe folks are listening right now that your job is part of this. Maybe it's time to get out of it. Like we said at the beginning of the show or in the middle too, you're better than this. We're here to help one another and to heal one another and to make people at peace, not to bring all this trauma into other people's lives. Jerry?
Well, thank you for a great two-part conversation on this. We'll perhaps visit this again at some point in the future. Tomorrow, we want to ask you, are you the Jesus freak in your family? In other words, are you on fire for your faith? And maybe your spouse, maybe your kids, maybe your relatives, your cousins, they all look at you as like, wow, that Jesus freak over there. But maybe you're just a devout Catholic, devout Christian. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day.